Deep beneath the crushing weight of the Pacific Ocean, evolution took a strange turn. In a world defined by armor plating, translucent gelatin, and sleek predatory forms,
we encounter a creature
that defies the aesthetic of the abyss. It looks less like a crustacean and more like a myth brought to life, a cryptid of the hydrothermal vents. This is the Yeti Crab, Kiwa hirsuta. A ghostly white decapod that seems to wear a coat of fur in the hottest, most toxic environment on Earth. But this is not insulation against the cold. It is a sophisticated survival mechanism. Why would a deep-sea scavenger need to be hairy? The answer reveals one of the most ingenious agricultural engineering feats in the natural world. Now, let's dive into the data and uncover the reality hidden in the deep. The year is 2005. An international team of marine biologists is scanning the ocean floor along the Pacific-Antarctic Ridge, roughly 1,500 kilometers south of Easter Island. They are piloting the DSV Alvin at a depth of over 2,200 meters, a zone of crushing darkness known as the bathypelagic. The conditions here are absolute. The pressure exceeds 220 atmospheres, enough to instantly implode a standard submarine, while the temperature hovers just above freezing. Yet, scattered across this freezing desert are hydrothermal vents, fissures in the planet's crust spewing superheated mineral-rich fluids. At temperatures capable of melting lead, it is a toxic, volatile hellscape. The water is saturated with hydrogen sulfide and methane chemicals that are lethal to most life forms on Earth. This is a place where biology typically surrenders to geology. Yet, as the submersible's external lights swept over the pillow lava formations, surrounding a vent field, the researchers spotted something stark white against the obsidian black rock. It wasn't a geological formation. It was a decapod crustacean, roughly 15 centimeters long, but it resembled nothing in the known biological record. It lacked the heavy calcified armor typical of deep-sea crabs, and its eyes were reduced to vestigial membranes, rendering it completely blind in the eternal night. Most strikingly, its thoracic legs and massive chelipeds, its claws, were covered in dense, silky, blonde bristles known as setae. The creature looked absurdly soft for such a hard environment. The discovery sent shockwaves through the marine biology community, forcing taxonomists to redraft the evolutionary tree. It was so phylogenetically distinct that scientists had to establish an entirely new family to classify it, the Kiwa. Named after Kiwa, the guardian of the ocean in Polynesian mythology, Kiwa hirsuta became the instant icon of this newly discovered biological frontier. But the classification was only the beginning of the puzzle. The anatomy suggested a purpose that baffled initial observation. Why evolve total blindness and distinct fur-like appendages? In an ecosystem defined by scarcity and predation? The answer lies in the chemistry. To understand the Yeti crab, we must stop looking at it as a scavenger and start viewing it as a machine. It has not just adapted to the poison, it has harnessed it. We realized that the crab wasn't just surviving the toxic sulfide plumes drifting from the vents. It was chasing them. This proximity to the lethal vent fluids was the first clue. To a survival strategy that borders on science fiction. To understand the Yeti crab, we must first place it under the microscope. When we zoomed in on those silky blonde bristles, the fur that gives the animal its name, the image shifted from the bizarre to the biological sublime. This is not hair. These are setae, flexible chitinous bristles that are standard equipment for many crustaceans, usually used for sensing movement or filtering particles. But the setae of Kiwa hirsuta are modified. They are incredibly dense, and under high magnification, we see that they are not smooth. They are coated in a thick, chaotic mat of filamentous bacteria. The crab is not wearing a coat. It is wearing a living, breathing garden. This realization fundamentally shifted our understanding of the animal's diet. In the deep sea, food is usually a game of chance. Most creatures in the abyss rely on marine snow, the detritus of dead plankton and feces drifting down from the sunlit surface miles above. It is a meager, erratic food supply. Relying on marine snow at this depth is like waiting for crumbs. To fall from a banquet table 3 miles up in the sky. But Kiwa hirsuta has opted out of this starvation economy. By analyzing the tissue density of the crab and the contents of its gut, we found traces of carbon isotopes that did not match the chemical signature of surface-derived marine snow. The carbon signature matched the bacteria on its arms. This confirms that the Yeti crab is an epibiotic farmer. It cultivates vast colonies of chemosynthetic bacteria on its chelipeds, and then consumes them as its primary food source. To appreciate the genius of this adaptation, we have to look at the energy source. In the world we know, the base of the food chain is photosynthesis. Plants use sunlight to convert carbon dioxide and water into sugar. Here, there is no sun. In the absence of photons, life must rely on electrons ripped from the heart of the planet. The bacteria living on the Yeti crab are chemolitho-autotrophs. They utilize the process of chemosynthesis. They take the hydrogen sulfide spewing from the hydrothermal vents, a gas that is highly toxic to the crab itself, and oxidize it. They turn poison into sugar. This creates a complex biological dependency. The bacteria need two things that rarely exist in the same place: hydrogen sulfide from the vents and oxygen from the surrounding seawater. This poses a logistical nightmare. The vents are anoxic. They have no oxygen. The surrounding seawater has oxygen but no sulfide. If the bacteria drift too close to the vent, they suffocate from lack of oxygen. If they drift too far away, they starve from lack of sulfide. They need a bridge. The Yeti crab is that bridge. By existing right on the tenuous interface between the lethal superheated vent fluid and the freezing oxygenated deep water, the crab places its garden. In the perfect Goldilocks zone for bacterial growth. It is a dangerous balance. We see the crab positioning itself precariously on the chimney walls, holding its massive bacteria-laden claws into the mixing zone of the plume. It provides the bacteria with the perfect substrate, the massive surface area of its hairy arms, and physically transports them into the precise chemical gradient they need to thrive. The bacteria get a home and a steady stream of nutrients. And what does the crab get? It gets a renewable, high-energy food source that never runs out as long as the Earth keeps venting. When it is time to harvest, the crab uses its smaller, specialized mouth appendages. The maxillipeds, which are modified like combs. It combs its own hair. We have observed Kiwa hirsuta meticulously grooming its claws, scraping off the bacterial filaments and passing them into its mouth. It is a closed-loop system of stunning efficiency. The crab doesn't hunt, it grazes on itself. This redefines the concept of the apex predator. The Yeti crab isn't at the top of a food chain built on predation. It is the host of an ecosystem built on cooperation. While a lion must expend massive energy to chase down prey, the Yeti crab simply exists, letting chemistry do the work. It has internalized the food chain. But the brilliance of this adaptation goes deeper than just farming. It solves the toxicity problem. Remember the hydrogen sulfide? It enters the crab system too. But the bacteria on its arms effectively detoxify the immediate environment. By consuming the sulfide before it can overwhelm the crab's respiratory system. It is a suit of living armor. The fur acts as a biofilter, scrubbing the water around the crab, allowing it to survive in conditions that would kill other crustaceans in minutes. This discovery forced us to ask a critical question about the evolution of deep-sea life. Did the crab evolve the hair to farm the bacteria? Or did the bacteria colonize the hair and the crab learn to eat it? The evidence points to co-evolution. The setae of the Yeti crab are not just random bristles. They are complex branched structures designed to maximize surface area. The anatomy of the crab is specifically engineered to maximize the yield of its crop. A single square centimeter of the Yeti crab's arm can host millions of bacterial filaments. It is a monoculture. The crab's immune system likely secretes antimicrobial peptides that weed out weedy bacteria, ensuring only the nutritious, sulfur-oxidizing species can attach. It is not just a farmer, it is a master agriculturalist. This symbiosis allows Kiwa hirsuta to reach population densities that are unheard of in the deep sea. We have found them stacked on top of each other, carpeting the vent walls in a writhing mass of white. They have conquered scarcity. By bypassing the need for sunlight, they have unlocked an energy source that is as old as the planet itself. But the anatomy tells only half the story. If you observe Kiwa hirsuta for any length of time, you notice a behavior that is eerily rhythmic. It is not hunting. It extends its massive furry claws into the water column and sways them side to side. It looks like a ritual. For years, this behavior baffled observers. Was it territorial? Was it a sensory sweep? We now understand this movement as a vital agricultural technique known as active flux facilitation. Microscopic organisms, like the bacteria on the crab's arms, face a significant physical hurdle known as the boundary layer. As they consume the nutrients in the water immediately surrounding them, they create a depleted halo where the oxygen and sulfide levels drop to near zero. If the water stands still, the crop dies. The bacteria would suffocate in their own waste products. The crab must become the current. By waving its arms, the Yeti crab disrupts this stagnant boundary layer. Music. It is essentially irrigating its crops. This changes our perception of the animal's intelligence. We are not looking at a passive host that simply allows bacteria to grow on it like moss on a rock. We are witnessing an active, energy-intensive cultivation process where the host modifies the physical environment to maximize the productivity of its symbionts. This dance is a precise calibration of fluid dynamics. Research indicates that the frequency of the waving creates optimal turbulence. Enough to refresh the nutrients, but not so violent that it shears the bacteria off the bristles. This behavior suggests a feedback loop. The crab likely senses the metabolic output of the bacteria, perhaps through chemical receptors on the antennae, and adjusts its behavior accordingly. It farms by feel. This level of behavioral specialization is rare in the deep sea, where conserving energy is usually the highest priority. Most deep-sea creatures are ambush predators, sitting motionless for weeks. The Yeti crab is in constant rhythmic motion. It invests energy to create energy. This investment pays off in the form of rapid growth and reproduction, allowing them to dominate the vent ecosystems they inhabit. But this reliance on a specific chemical balance reveals the creature's greatest vulnerability. It is a prisoner of the plume. The Yeti crab cannot swim. It cannot chase prey into the open ocean. It is tethered to the hydrothermal vent by an invisible chemical leash. If it strays too far from the warm, sulfide-rich water, its bacteria starve. If it gets too close to the erupting chimney, it cooks. It exists on a razor's edge, a strip of habitable rock often only a few meters wide. This geographic restriction poses a massive evolutionary problem. Hydrothermal vents are geologically temporary. They are volcanic features. Eventually, the magma chamber shifts, the heat dies down, and the vents go cold. When the vent dies, the ecosystem dies. This leads us to the final and perhaps most profound mystery of the Yeti crab. How does a flightless blind farmer cross the desert? The distance between active hydrothermal vent fields can be hundreds of kilometers. Between these oases lies the abyssal plain, a vast freezing expanse devoid of hydrogen sulfide. For an adult Yeti crab, attempting to cross this void would be suicide. Its bacterial crop would starve, and the crab would follow shortly after. Yet, we find them everywhere. Genetic analysis of Kiwa hirsuta populations across different vent sites along the Pacific-Antarctic ridge shows that they are closely related. They are connected. This implies that despite their isolation, there is gene flow. They are crossing the abyss. The answer likely lies in the larval stage. While the adults are benthic, bottom-dwelling, and heavily specialized, we hypothesize that the larvae are pelagic. When the crabs spawn, they likely release their eggs into the water column. The larvae, microscopic and untethered, are swept up by deep ocean currents. They drift in the cold darkness for months, perhaps years, in suspended animation. They carry no bacteria. They are blank slates. They drift until, by sheer statistical chance, a chemical sensor detects the faint whiff of sulfur in the water, the scent of a new vent field. They drop from the current. They settle onto the rock, molt, and somehow, through a mechanism we still do not fully understand, acquire the specific bacterial starter culture they need to begin farming. This cycle of colonization highlights the paradox of the deep sea. It is an environment of extreme isolation, yet it requires global connectivity for survival. The Yeti crab is a master of both stasis and movement, holding its ground on a toxic chimney while sending its children into the infinite dark. In the Yeti crab, we see the dismantling of the word monster. When we first shone our lights on Kiwa hirsuta, we saw a pale, hairy aberration. A nightmare crawling out of the volcanic dark. But through the lens of science, the nightmare dissolves. We see elegance. We see a creature that has turned its body into a garden. A farmer that dances to feed its crop. And a pioneer that thrives where life should be impossible. It teaches us that in the deep ocean, there are no monsters. There are only perfect solutions to impossible problems. The Yeti crab is not an anomaly to be feared. It is a testament to the stubborn, ingenious resilience of life on Earth. Now, let's dive into the data and uncover the reality hidden in the deep.